Welcome to the Femme Fatale, a true crime podcast with an astrology twist. I'm your host, Stacey Dotson. Each week, I'll be joined by a guest host because this Femme Fatale prefers not to work alone. Hey, welcome back to the Femme Fatale. And today I'm joined again with my good friend, Tracy. You may remember her from the Eileen Wuornos episode. And who are we talking about today, Tracy?
Guten Morgen, Stacey.
Guten Morgen, Tracy.
We're going to talk about Ilse Koch, the bitch of Buchenwald. We're going to go back to Nazi Germany, late 1930s, 1940s, into the 12 eras of the Third Reich. In those 12 years, approximately 12 million people were murdered, not by random wartime crossfire, not by aerial bombings, not by urban battle chaos, but by systems deliberately built for imprisonment, torture, forced labor, execution, and mass killing. When most people think about the Third Reich in Nazi Germany, the image of a woman usually does not come to mind. But there is one woman whose name permanently became tied to the horrors of Buchenwald concentration camp in East Central Germany, where more than 56,000 prisoners died. That woman was Ilse Koch. Ilse was often described as a red-haired, green-eyed, buxom woman. Isn't that a great word?
It is. Buxom is a great word.
She would later become known in popular media, as I previously stated, the bitch of Buchenwald. Her story became infamous for allegations of extreme cruelty, shocking post-war trials, and lingering questions involving evidence, propaganda, and historical truth, which honestly makes her a far more complicated figure than many people realize, and one that has totally always fascinated me.
Yeah, she's an eccentric, horrible individual.
Absolutely. Yes. A monster. Yeah.
A monster, for sure.
So Ilse Koch was born Ilse Kohler on September 22nd, 1906 in Dresden. After graduating high school, she worked in a bookstore and later as a secretary. In May of 1932, she joined the Nazi Party, and that was prior to Hitler taking power in 1933. So
she was in it before then.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
She was in it. And at that time, women made up about 7.5% of the party, so such a small amount. In 1936, Ilse became employed as a secretary within the Nazi Party and was assigned to her first concentration camp. Let's see, Sachsenhausen. It was there that she met Karl Otto Koch, an ambitious and rising SS officer. So just for any listeners that aren't familiar with who the SS was, right? It's short for Schutzstaffel. It essentially translates to protection squadron, and it's what began as Hitler's personal security force.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Do you happen to know how many concentration camps there were? You said her first concentration camp.
This was a concentration camp, more like a work camp, not the ones that would later become death camps. A lot of them were literally like, this concentration camp didn't have a gas chamber. It wasn't
Auschwitz. Listen to this. More than 44,000 camps. But again, they were labor camps, transit camps, and then the extermination camps.
Yeah. And then the SS was basically oversaw all of those camps, right? I mean, that became one of their duties. So Ilse and Karl married on May 25th, 1937 in an SS pagan ceremony. And together they would have 2 children. Just 1 month after they were married, Karl was transferred to the newly opened Buchenwald concentration camp and was made commandant, placing him in charge of the camp's operations, prisoner labor systems, punishments, and internal structure. Because of Karl's position, Ilse wasn't just living near the concentration camp, she was actually inside of it. So it's important to note that the way that these camps were structured, it's not like they lived off the property, like they were there.
So, yeah, looking into it, it seems like these camps, they had, where they were keeping the prisoners, but they also had housing, like houses on the property, correct?
Yeah. There's even that prison that closed. Did you ever go out to that prison in Sugar Land that closed down?
Yeah, I never went, but I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
It was cool. Yeah. So we did a photo shoot out there one time. We broke in and got into it. And on the property, they had housing. So it was I imagine in my mind, that it was similar to that where you had little cluster of homes off to the side. And then like you would literally walk like a few hundred feet to the prison. So I'm assuming it was like that kind of structure. In my mind, I've been there. So the allegations, right? Let's talk about the allegations. From the time Ilse arrived at Buchenwald with her husband, stories began to circulate about her presence and daily life there. It seemed to start for her with visibility, right? Not her visibility, but the visibility of things on prisoners. So tattoos, scars, birthmarks, any visible marks that made prisoners stand out in a system built to erase identity. In survivor accounts, the visibility sometimes meant people were noticed, separated, or treated differently once they were inside the camp. So as the stories go, right, she would be out there when the prisoners were being brought in and say, like, for instance, someone had a birthmark on their face. If she saw that, she would ask them to be separated. She would ask the guards to separate that person. And again, as the allegations say, that in situations like that, those people that she picked out disappeared.
She wanted everybody uniform.
Yeah, but there was another reason.
Okay, we'll get there.
Yeah. So she's described as present also during all of the punishments and, like I said, the selections of prisoners. Not observing from a distance, but like literally there. There were accounts that describe prisoners being beaten or killed after allegedly looking at her in ways that were conceived as disrespectful or maybe like lustful. Other claims describe her moving through the camp and reporting prisoners for real or imagined infractions, triggering punishment carried out by SS guards, which she would watch. So
she was a little voyeuristic.
Yeah, absolutely. But then the allegations further escalate, and here's where the birthmarks and different scars maybe came tied in, is when objects were removed from her camp residence after the Allies liberated the camp.
Yeah.
Lampshades, book covers, and other items allegedly made from human skin. And these are the ones that had the either tattooed skin or scars or, any kind of a large mole. So that was her thing.
So gross.
So in 1941, things at Buchenwald were already starting to crack internally. Karl, Ilse's husband and the commandant, was removed from Buchenwald in 1941. This was following SS investigations into corruption, theft, misuse of camp property and resources, and abuse of authority within the camp system. So it's important to be clear here, right? Karl wasn't being removed or investigated because there was any care about the prisoners or the brutality happening. He was being removed because there was corruption within their own system. So during the same investigation, obviously, Ilse was also taken into SS custody, but she was not formally charged. And so she was basically like let go.
Yeah.
She obviously then had to move from Buchenwald. She left the camp environment with her children and returned to life outside the camp while her husband's case continued within the SS system. So between 1941 and 1945, she is no longer actively living at the site, but the camp is still operating. Then in 1945, ironically enough, Karl is brought back to Buchenwald and executed there by a Nazi firing squad.
Oh, he was executed.
At the camp where she had been, where they had lived, and where he had supposedly, was doing corrupt things, right? So that was April 5th, 1945. So on April 11th, 1945, so just a few days later, Buchenwald is liberated by Allied forces.
Just a few days later. Okay.
Just a few days later, right? And then that's when the Nazi camp systems begin to collapse. So and then Nazi Germany officially surrendered on May 8th, 1945. And then shortly thereafter, investigations expand to all people connected to concentration camp operations and administration, which means Ilse. Ilse was on their list. So she was found and taken into custody in June of 1945. She'd been living outside of Munich. So again, 1945. So In January 1946, Ilse is formally charged with war crimes tied to her time at Buchenwald, including the allegations of prisoner abuse and involvement in mistreatment inside the camp. In 1947, she is tried by a U.S. military tribunal at Dachau, one of the early Allied war crimes courts established in the American occupation zone after World War II. The case centers on her alleged involvement. She is convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment.
By a U.S. court.
U.S. court, right. However, in 1949, again, U.S. military decided to review the case as part of a broader reassessment of early war crime convictions, particularly cases where parts of the evidence were based heavily on testimony, right, which is basically almost all of hers. So they then decide, they basically overturn the ruling. So she's set free.
She's set free. She's released.
She's released. Well, actually, it's like reduced, right? And she's released.
They commuted her sentence.
Yeah. And she's been there, 3 years? So she was in custody 3 years. Then, after major public backlash and continued investigation into the Nazi era crimes, West German authorities reopened the case. So thought she was good, but now she's not, right? So now she's rearrested in 1950. And this time, she's brought before a civilian court in the newly formed West German legal system, independently prosecuting wartime atrocities outside of Allied military tribunals. And then in January 1951, she is convicted again and sentenced to life imprisonment, and that ruling ultimately stands. So she remained in prison in Eikach, a women's prison in West Germany, until she hanged herself on September 1st, 1967.
It's weird. These people can inflict this torture on people, but when they feel like they're being tortured, they just end it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So just another case of that.
Unless we've got a situation where she really didn't hang herself and then somebody just got in there and removed her.
Like Jeffrey Epstein.
You never know, right?
She was Jeffrey Epstein.
People in power. You never know. There's still that speculation that Hitler didn't commit suicide.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There is.
Right? Remember? Maybe she is still alive and well in Argentina.
Who knows?
That's where they all go. The Nazi war criminals.
That went to Argentina.
So crazy, right? So, and the thing is, there are definitely, the artifacts, the lamp shades, and a lot of that.
That's what I was about to ask. Yeah. What about that?
Yeah. Even though she wasn't living in the house whenever they found it, those were the things that there were allegations that she supposedly commissioned all of those. So when she left, she had decorated, because remember, they had taken over the camp when it was first built. She and her husband were the first family there. She decorated.
Oh, okay.
The items, they had to leave everything behind when he was arrested and she was forced to leave. So everything stayed as is. So when the Allies liberated the camp, everything within that home were tied to her and Carl.
I just had a thought that I hadn't thought of yet, but it's when we use the word commissioned, when you said she commissioned those, she made the Jewish workers make that stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Oh my God. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, some of the testimony came from people that supposedly had to make those items.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
Right? Can you imagine? And they had to do it or risk the...
Right. I mean, a lot of people did a lot of things just because, the alternative, right, was torture or death. Yeah. Wow. Oh, she was a lot. Okay, so it's pop culture time, and I have to say, Ilse Koch has a pop culture footprint that is genuinely wild for someone who's not exactly a household name. So what I want to start with is what's current, because she actually just showed up on Netflix in Monster, the Ed Gein story. Have you seen that?
Yes.
You did? Okay. So it came out in 2024, and Ilse Koch is a character, and she's played by Vicky Krieps. And the show draws a direct line between Koch and Ed Gein, the Wisconsin serial killer. And like Ilse, he had this morbid obsession with fashioning objects out of human skin. And the show frames it as Gein having been influenced by media coverage of her trial And it's not historically accurate. Gein had a lot of hallucinations when he was in the psychiatric hospital, and that was probably one of them. But The Connection made great TV, and Vicky Krieps is phenomenal. So that one is absolutely worth watching. And since you watched it, I'm going to sidebar, not relevant to this, but they also recreate the famous Buffalo Bill dance from Silence of the Lambs in the show. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
So what did you think of it?
So Gein, there was, whenever they did arrest him, they did find artifacts in his house made out of human skin. So, definitely there was some truth in the Netflix series. I know that he had been also a World War II history fanatic. I like that they picked her out, Ilse specifically. I don't know how much of that is true, but it's definitely was pretty awesome. I liked the way they did that.
I read an article with the creator of the series, and he said that they didn't find anything historically accurate on their connection.
With her specifically, yeah. But he was obsessed with World War II history, so.
His hobby was, making things out of skin. So obviously he probably was a little bit fascinated with her too.
Yeah, I do like that she showed up, though. I thought that was awesome. The only thing that bugged me was his voice.
In real life, he was soft-spoken like that, right?
Yeah, he was, but that was a little extreme. And then I didn't like the fact that he had a girlfriend because there's nothing to historically show that he had the girlfriend.
In real life, he'd known someone growing up, from what I understand, and he asked her to marry him and she said no. So they just took liberties with all of that.
No, I know. And you can kind of be like, that was what was happening in his head.
Yeah.
Kind of look at it that, but yeah, it was just
well, that's what I think a lot of Ilse Koch stuff was when he was, at that time, he was in the mental hospital, right? And so he was hallucinating conversations and stuff like that. So anyway, Jax from Sons of Anarchy played him. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so here, let's go to this. Now, if we go back to 1975, and this is where it gets wild, there's a grindhouse exploitation film called Ilse, She-Wolf of the SS. And the character Ilse is loosely, and I'm using that word loosely, based on Ilse Koch and starred Diane Thorne, and it was immediately controversial. Now, do you remember the film critics Siskel and Ebert?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so Gene Siskel actually called it the most degenerate picture he had ever seen play downtown. It's got graphic violence, torture, very explicit content, and it was a massive financial success. It became a staple of grindhouse and drive-in theaters, and it spawned 3 sequels. 3. And then I found it on Plex, and we watched it the other night, and I had to stop and start because it's just getting through it was tough because it's such poor taste to take one of the most tragic things that's ever happened in our history and sexualize it. So, needless to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. I don't think I'm going to try to find the other 3. Have you watched it yet?
I haven't.
It's on Plex, and it's pretty, yeah. I mean, maybe you should watch it just to understand.
I wanted to. I just I didn't think to look for it for Plex, and I was like, I don't know where to find it. Yeah. I'll put it on my list. And
okay.
We can talk about it.
Yes. Now, okay, for the listeners who want something more serious, there are 2 documentaries I found, and unfortunately, I didn't have the time to watch them. So I'm just going to read some stuff I found on it. But the first is The Bitch of Buchenwald from 2010, directed by Jerry Miller. And it puts her whole career in the context of Nazi Germany, her trial, her releases, the re-imprisonment. It's thorough. It doesn't exploit any of, the stuff that really she kind of gets exploited for. So it's definitely more on the serious side. It's a documentary. And then the second I read about is an episode from the series Most Evil Men and Women in Our History from 2002. And it's heavily survivor testimony based.
Nice.
I really want to watch that. It's 45 minutes long. And it's, if you want to go deeper after you watch the other documentary, this is the one that with the survivor testimony. And then there's a book, The Beasts of Buchenwald, full title. This title's great. Karl and Ilse Koch, Human Skin Lampshades and the War Crimes Trial of the Century. That's the full title of the book. I know. So it's part of the Buchenwald trilogy, and it's probably the most comprehensive modern book specifically on her. And it covers the trial, the lampshade mythology, the legal battles. If you want the full story from start to finish, it's the one to read. I haven't read it yet, but
I would be interested in that. Totally.
yes. And then one more thing I wanted to mention, because it's fascinating to me, is Woody Guthrie, the American folk legend, wrote a song called Ilse Koch in the late 1940s.
Wait, that was the title of the song?
Her name was the title of the song. And so he wrote it in the late 1940s while he was living in Brooklyn, and he was deeply shaken by the Holocaust. And when the U.S. military briefly commuted her sentence, he was furious, and he put that fury into lyrics. The song references the international outrage directly with the lines of "Old Isla Koch was jailed, old Isla Koch went free." And now his writing during that period was heavily influenced by his second wife, Marjorie, and her mother. And her mother was a Yiddish poet named Elissa Greenblatt. So there was a deep Jewish connection running through everything he was creating at the time. He recorded a demo at home, but those lyrics just sat in the Woody Guthrie archives for decades. And then in early 2000s, his daughter Nora invited a klezmer group called the Klezmatics to set those forgotten lyrics to music. And the result ended up on their 2006 album Wonder Wheel, which won a Grammy. So Ilse Koch ended up to be immortalized in a Grammy-winning klezmer record.
Did you say the klezmatics?
The Klezmatics.
Not to be confused with the plasmatics.
Not to be confused with the plasmatics.
I need to know what the klezmatics look like.
We should. Maybe I'll put a link to some of that in the thing.
Maybe we should cover some of their songs.
Yes. I'm surprised you have a song about Eileen. You need one about Ilse. Maybe you can just cover that song.
I can just, cover Guthrie's song.
Yeah, do that. Okay. Do you have any other contributions to any pop culture about her?
No, you pretty much covered all of it. That was great. That was more than I could even hope for.
I know, that movie. Ugh.
I don't know if I'll watch it now that you told me that.
Well, okay, so I always love stuff like that.
Oh, I love good grindhouse film.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fact of where it's set and what's taking place. You know what I mean? And so it's like, you want to poke fun at it and everything, but then you're like, God, this is such poor judgment. And then for it to be so huge and have 3 sequels, that's crazy.
Gotta love the 70s.
It was a hairier time back then. You'll notice that if you ever watch that movie.
In more ways than one.
Yes. Okay, so I'm so excited. I can't wait to get into the astrology. You ready?
Yeah. Woo!
So first, quick foundation. When most people think about astrology, they think about, their sun sign, their basic, like I'm a Taurus, you're a Sagittarius, right? That's the sign the sun was in on the day you were born. But a full birth chart is so much more than that. Every planet, the moon, Mars, Venus, Saturn, all of them, they were somewhere in the sky when you were born, and each one tells a different part of your story. To get the full picture, you need the date, the place, and the exact time of birth. And we actually have all 3 for her. Pulled from her real birth certificate, yes. So we can do her whole chart if we wanted, but I mean, that would be a really long podcast. So we're just going to do some main parts, okay? With each sign, I've touched on this in an episode before, but each sign has 30 degrees. So like your Sagittarius has 30 degrees, my Taurus has 30 degrees. And if you look at it sort of like a ruler, 0 degrees is the very beginning of the sign, and 29 degrees is the very end. And where your planet falls on that ruler matters, because the closer to the end of the sign, the more that planet has fully absorbed everything that sign has to offer, for better or for worse, right? Now, with that in mind, let's get into it. So Isla Koch was born September 22nd, 1906 at 10:45 at night in Dresden, Germany. Her sun, her core identity is Virgo, and specifically it's 28 degrees Virgo, which means she's at the very end of Virgo, right on the edge of Libra, And it matters because Virgo is a sign obsessed with order and systems and the physical body. Virgo rules health and medicine and the act of categorizing things.
Whoa.
I know. This is good. I read this to
Wow.
Greg last night. So yeah.
I just got chills.
So these are people who want to analyze, dissect, and organize and view the body as something that needs to be studied and managed. And at 28 degrees, she had absorbed all of that to the extreme. So now her moon, your moon sign is different from your sun sign. While your sun is your core identity, your moon is your inner emotional world. It's how you feel things, what you need to feel safe, what's going on underneath, the surface that most people never see. And Ilse's moon is in Scorpio, was in Scorpio. She's no longer with us. So
Maybe.
maybe she's in Argentina.
So they say.
Yeah. So Scorpio moon is, and I don't say this lightly, like one of the most emotionally intense placements in the zodiac. So Scorpio moon people feel everything at maximum volume. Scorpio is a water sign, and most of the water signs are emotionally intense. And to have a moon in a water sign, think about the moon's effects on the tides and apply that to your emotions. So Scorpio moons, they are drawn to power, to darkness, to what other people consider taboo or forbidden. They have an almost magnetic pull towards the hidden and transgressive. They need to possess and to control things, and it doesn't operate quietly or gently ever. So we already have a Virgo sun that wants to organize and categorize the body, and a Scorpio moon underneath that is drawn to darkness and power and transgression. Things that I can do now because I have the time. So we're going to get a little deeper, right? And here's where I want to introduce the concept of a square. In astrology, when two planets are about 90 degrees apart from each other in the chart, picture a clock. And the two planets are sitting at positions that would make a right angle. And that's called a square. And a square means tension. It means that these two energies are fighting each other. They don't cooperate. They don't flow. They push against each other constantly. So her Virgo sun and her Scorpio moon are in a square. And the Virgo wants order and cleanliness and control, but the Scorpio moon wants intensity and transgression and possession. And so they are at war with each other inside her all the time with no resolution. Now, where her moon is sitting in the chart, this is where houses come in. So again, go back to a clock. There are 12 houses on the clock, and each one governs a different area of life. The first house is the self. The 7th is relationships. The 10th is career and public legacy. And her Scorpio moon is sitting in the 5th house, which is the house of pleasure, self-expression, and performance.
Whoa.
I know, right? It's where we play. It's where we show off. It's where we act out who we are. So her deep, dark, intense Scorpio emotional world isn't just sitting quietly inside of her. It's in the house of performance and expression. It wants an audience. It acts out, and it gets pleasure from those actions.
Wow. Okay.
And so this is where I'm so excited because I've never been able to talk about the rising sign before. I never had a time of birth for any of the people we've covered, right? And so your rising sign is also called your ascendant, and it's the sign that was coming up over the horizon at the exact moment you were born. And it's your mask. It's the first impression you make. It's the energy you lead with, and what the world sees before it gets to know you. So you need an exact birth time to calculate this, and that's why that birth certificate matters so much. And her rising sign is Cancer. Cancer rising projects warmth, domestic, and nurturing energy. It is the gracious hostess, the woman who makes her home feel welcoming, who wants everyone around her to feel taken care of. And she literally demanded that the prisoners who worked at her house call her Eingabe Frau. And that is German for gracious lady. That is her Cancer rising doing exactly what it does, performing warmth as an identity. I think this is what allowed her to host parties at Villa Cook and genuinely feel like a respectable woman of the house. Her Mars is in Sagittarius. Mars is the planet of action, how you assert yourself, how you fight, what drives you to move. In Sagittarius, Mars acts on ideology. It doesn't act from cold, calculated logic. It acts for a cause, for a belief system, and she believed she was supporting the Third Reich.
Absolutely.
She felt like this was her duty. And so I always say it, the chart doesn't make anyone do anything. Think of astrology like the weather, not the destiny. But there are people walking around right now with Scorpio moons who are extraordinary, transformative, and deeply empathetic humans. So what the chart does is show us the energies at play. And in her case, those energies in one of the most evil environments in modern history, surrounded by an ideology that gave all of it permission, those energies expressed in the darkest way they possibly could. The Virgo sun cataloged and organized, the Scorpio moon craved the darkness and needed to possess it, the Cancer rising performed the warmth and the grace, and the Mars in Sagittarius made it all feel righteous. So that was the astrology. I was so excited. I had a birth time.
Yeah, that is so cool. Wow, that was pretty intense.
Thanks for joining me this Sunday morning-ish. Yes.
Thanks for having me. Auf Wiedersehen, Stacy.
Yes, I should have looked up more German words before this. What's no bueno in German?
Nein gut.
Nein gut? Is that what it is?
I mean, no is nine. Good is gut. Nein gut.
Nein gut.
Not sure if that's how they use it, but we will. We're just going to use it.
We're going to use it that way.
Because Ilse was nein gut.
She was nein gut for sure. But yeah, like that's such an interesting story. And I'll be honest, I didn't know anything about her. When you texted me like a week ago, you were like, I'm going to do this. And I had to look her up. And I was like, I've been wanting to do something to do with wars or, like focus on some people during wartime. Okay. I'll link to a bunch of stuff in the description. So thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Bye. The Femme Fatale, created and hosted by Stacey Dotson, produced by Mark Williams. Music by Marcia Yingling, Chad Shank, and Greg Loicano.